The truth is, back in my 20s, I dealt Class A drugs to the point where I could have went to prison and done time. And the unfortunate fact is that I know somebody who I was speaking to recently actually, who dealt less drugs than me and did 9 months in prison. When I look at me past, I think things could have been a lot worse had I went too deep down that rabbit hole. Unfortunately, some people do. I dabbled quite a lot. I was into cocaine a lot in my 20s. I took my last line of cocaine on my 30th birthday. I'm now coming up to my 39th as of the filming of this video, and so it's been nearly 9 years since I've touched it. And I haven't drank really in 5 years as well. So I haven't actually been intoxicated. Well, I haven't actually been drunk for nearly 6 years. And I wanted the thrill, you see. You know, what makes us wonder, back in the day, like, why did I decide to deal drugs for the short period that I did? So I remember, here's the story of it. I was hanging out with, I guess you could say, the wrong crew, where on a weekend I would dabble in cocaine. We did ecstasy, a little bit speed. We even tried ketamine, the horse tranquilizer, and all the other things. I was very much into partying on the weekend, sniffing, drinking, more or less from the age of, I'd say probably 19, 20, up to 29, 30. And I would go out and get so fucked up that I couldn't remember what had happened, where I'd been, what had went on. And I wanted the thrill even more. So I remember I borrowed a few £100 off my mum. I can't remember what I said it was for. And we got this small little, like a key, they call it a key, I think, of cocaine. And we bought the scales. And me and this pal I was with at the time, we bought the little bags from Newcastle. And it was 0.9 grams, 1.1, all that. We started cutting it and putting it on, separating it out and selling it. And I made a few £100. It was the quickest money I'd ever made in my life. It was frightening how fast I made it. But I did that one little bit and I stopped because I got scared. I thought to myself, I could see, like, I'd vision the police knocking on my door, and I was thinking, I can't do this anymore. I still continue to take it, but that little stint could have went a hell of a lot worse. And it makes me think, like, why do we do these things? Because the thing is, the safety in numbers. When you're doing things around people and they're doing it as well, you feel almost like you're understood, you're accepted, right? This is true with drink, drugs, this is true with even food, things that are like our vice, which are not good for our health, physical or mental. And we do it because we feel accepted and we feel the thrill. We feel the thrill from what we consume a lot of the time. We feel the thrill of who we're around. We get that buzz, that adrenaline. And once that goes, sometimes we start to think, well, what can I replace that with? And then some of us turn to food, some of us turn to smoking, some of us turn to alcohol, some of us turn to drugs. Like, we change our given vice all the time. But if I pass my mind back to what I used to do and how I used to act and who I used to hang around, it was very, very different. Because ultimately, if we think about it, we're all chasing the feeling. And that's why we do what we do. That's why we eat, smoke, drink, get involved in drama, be nice people. We're chasing a feeling of some kind. And that's what I was doing with drinking drugs. I was chasing a feeling. But there's the opposite side of that, where we feel nothing, where we feel depressed, we feel anxious, we feel low, we feel overwhelmed, we feel like we can't handle it. And I had a point in my life where I wanted to die after a breakup. And people believed a lot of lies about me, and found myself trying to prove myself, and nobody would listen, and I felt like everybody hated me and I hated myself, and my mental health wasn't good. And I walked into a pharmacy and I wanted to buy all these pills to take to end it all in a short space of time. And I had those thoughts, those self-destructive, suicidal thoughts. Albeit momentarily, I was still at the lowest of the low. Then after that, I started to build myself up, and I still occasionally went out and I still occasionally took drugs and all the rest. But it was kind of like this sometimes roller coaster of emotions that you might be familiar with. But what I noticed over the time, right, especially when I was drinking a lot, when I was sniffing a lot, when I was taking a lot of drugs, is I needed a purpose outside of living for the weekend. So I had a job, I had a secure job as a plumber, but I was miserable. I didn't like the way it was going. I didn't like who I was becoming. I didn't like ruining my Sundays and my Mondays and my Tuesdays from a come down or a hangover. Did not like that at all. Hated the idea of it. So I needed something to excite me outside of living for the weekend. So I needed to find passion. I needed to find purpose. Something that gave me a purpose outside of the weekend. I needed to find something that would help me get out of bed in the morning, would help me not over-consume and ruin weekends and days after, but something that actually involved positively impacting others, that grew, that I could see other people coming along and learning to lead like I guess I have led and continue to lead, like being a positive influence. So I see a lot of people struggling, and I don't like to see people unnecessarily struggling. I see people suffering, and then I started, when you study development and you study a little bit psychology and why we operate and do the things we do and why we have the emotions we have and why we choose the choices we do. It's all down to feelings. We're chasing a feeling. But a lot of the time, we don't realize how our own choices are destroying our good feelings. We procrastinate on things to stay comfortable. We don't introduce ourselves to uncomfortable scenarios and situations because we blame fear or lack of confidence, whereas we don't overcome the fear or gain the confidence until we actually do the thing that we're scared of. The courage is doing the thing even with the fear, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And when we push through something uncomfortable, even though we don't feel like it or we're not confident enough yet and we do it, then we gain the confidence after. We gain the feeling after. People are waiting for the feeling to come or to strike before they take action and start and begin their dreams and begin the uncomfortable steps to get through or get over what they want to get through or get over. I needed something to sink my teeth into, for lack of a better term, to get me excited on a Monday to get out of bed, to get me looking forward every day, not just a weekend. And I found exercise, and I found that I always had a kind of passion for exercise anyway. I still drank and took drugs whilst I was exercising in my 20s. I still went to the gym 3 times a week, 4 times a week here and there. But I could never quite get a handle on the diet, never quite get a handle on the consistency. It would be a week on, 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on, a week off, 4 days on, 7 days off. It was all up and down, right? And I remember somebody told me the phrase, it's easier to keep up than catch up. And I was like, whoa, that's some phrase. And that is so true when it comes to healthy habits. It's easier to keep up with them than catch up with them. And I was playing catch up for over a decade. That's the simplicity of it. And some people play catch up their entire lives. So I try to teach people now to play keeping up, even though it's hard, even though it's uncomfortable, even though sometimes you might think you're missing out on certain things. You never regret not drinking. You never regret not taking Coke. You never regret not making bad choices. That's the thing that we don't understand sometimes. We live for the moment. We hear the phrases like, you're not here for a long time, you're here for a good time. But everyone's definition of a good time is different. If your definition of a good time is 7 pints, a couple of lines, or even if you don't take drugs, if you indulge massively in food, for example, and you're 4 stone overweight, then it's uncomfortable. And I was playing catch up for 10 years. Like 10 years, I was easy playing catch up. And I see people playing catch up their entire lives. And it's so much easier to keep up, even though it's hard to keep up with a healthy lifestyle and healthy habits and changing your habits. It's hard. It is hard. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it and everybody would be sorted. But we have an obesity and a mental health epidemic because things are hard. But just because things are hard doesn't mean we should avoid them. Because, of course, just like me dealing the drugs, it's the path of least resistance. I got scared of how easy, because I'm used to hard work. I'm a grafter. I was a plumber for 8 years. I was brought up with being taught to graft and work to earn and live. I was never really lazy, and I earned hundreds of pounds in a matter of a day. And I'd never done that before in the early 20s like that. And I was thinking, this is too easy. It's the path of least resistance, right? And as humans, we like to follow that, and we like to always think there's an easier way and a quicker way. And whilst there is easier and faster ways to do things, sometimes they're not always the most useful. So I guess the question we've got to keep asking myself is this useful to my life? Is the way I'm operating now useful? And one thing that changed for me was reaching out to people who had the results in their life that I wanted, being around them more, sign up their programs or their courses or read their books or just watch their YouTube channel or follow them on social media, whatever it was. It's always super important to get that perspective from those people and to follow them more. But obviously, at first, I don't know if you're watching this video this far through, maybe you've been following me for years. You've been following my emails, you've been watching my videos, you've been following my story, you've read one of my 2 books, I don't know. The idea ultimately, when I think about what I want to do and the impact that I want to change, and this is how I transition, and it's still an ongoing process. I'm a work in progress, just like you are. I'm ongoing. I haven't reached perfection or enlightenment, and that's it. I'm always looking for progression, because when we see progression, we notice progression, and we define progression, and we continue on that path, we ultimately feel happier. Progress is happiness. It's one thing I've learned over the years, is if we can feel that we're moving forward, at least if one step, then we're happier people. And I don't ultimately want to just gain a following. I've gained a fairly significant following, but nothing astronomical. There's people who flash their arse on Instagram who've got millions of followers, and here's little old me with a couple of thousand. But it's never been about a following. It's been about creating more leaders. And that's why I've gotten up every day at 5 a.m. and I coach Total Supercharged Tribe in South Shields. And then through COVID, the beauty and the gift was that were forced to go online, which meant I could continue online training now as full time with online and in room here in the wonderful South Shields that I'm on the seafront at the minute. And also being able to coach people one-to-one on their business and their mindset, and having that ability to be able to help people progress in whatever way they feel they need to. But ultimately, if we strip this all back, this whole story is about the feelings that we chase. And the reason why I got into drugs and I got into drink and all the rest is because we chase feelings. And most of us just want to feel better, but we just use these certain vices and things to feel better in the moment. And whilst it has some kind of immediate feeling, it ultimately doesn't create a fulfilling feeling later down the line. This whole long-term fulfillment should be more at the forefront of our minds and our hearts than this immediate gratification. There is a balancing act between it, because we're always going to love our sugar and a little bit drink or whatever it may be. But ultimately it's about finding the balance and working more towards a longer-term fulfillment than an immediately gratifying right now. So I hope in some way this has been useful. It's been a little bit of a rambling and a small little bit of my story. The sun has even came out whilst we've been chatting here, and maybe that's a sign that your day is about to get better too. And I hope if this has been at all useful and anybody needs to hear this, that you tag them in the comments below, or you just click share and share it in their inbox to this video, or leave a little comment. Let me know if it was useful for you, and I guess I'll see you on the next video. Hey, my name's Luke John Harrison.
Luke John Harrison.
The Luke John Harrison.
The Luke John Harrison.
Luke John Harrison!
I thought I'd give you guys a little sneak peek around the current facility. This is going to be our training area along here. It's quite large, and we'll have a large mural put on there. This is where we're going to be training, this is where we're going to be changing our lives for the better, becoming more of a community, and generally just enjoying it a hell of a lot more. The opening of my very first book. Oh, look at that. You've even got a barcode and everything, man. Going from full-time working plumber, totally anxious man, overthinking to the max, to standing in this room right now, there was a transition that had to be made from comfortable and secure with a great job and a great pension, living an average life, and there's nothing wrong with that if you're satisfied doing that, but I wasn't. This stuff does work, and I have applied it to myself and the people around us, and it does really, really, really work. The most important date, the most important situation is just the next one. If we had that mindset and you really adopted that, that's what changed for me, because from the age of 16 to 26, I was the start on Monday guy too. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a counsellor. I'm not even qualified in mental health in any way. I have very little qualifications to my name. But what I do have is a story. I mean, I used to take cocaine regularly on the weekends. I used to smoke dope all the time. I used to drink regularly. I wasn't a stand-up role model. There's so many reasons why you shouldn't listen to me. But there's, I think, many reasons why you should as well. My results are my qualifications. I've written 2 books on physical and mental health. I've produced over 2,000 free pieces of content on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. It's been nearly 10 years of this self-development journey, improving my lifestyle from the ground up. And for 10 years now, I've been in the development world. I've helped people with fitness, with mindset, with mental health for a long, long time. They did a study on the dying when they were in the deathbeds, and they were at the end of life, and they were asking about their biggest regrets. And they were asking, what is your biggest regret? And you might think it's got to be that I wish I'd worked less and spent more time with my family. And that was up there, it was a very popular answer. You know, the biggest answer, the most popular thing that people said was, I wish that I'd lived the life that I wanted to live, not the life that others wanted me to live. And I'm sure none of us want to get to the end of our life and say those things. We want to be living a life that we truly enjoy, that is filled with health and happiness and contribution and growth and abundance. So think about your life with a little bit more of that. I'm sure you would agree that life would probably be a lot better. I'm nothing special. I stand here and talk to you with a lot of confidence, a lot of certainty, because I've done it so many times. I've just repeated it over and over again, basically. And anybody can look after themselves more when they've got the right strategy and the right people around them.